seeking adventure, some bound in chains, through battles waged and fought, through victory and pain. By test of their courage, our freedom was gained. In homage to those gone before us, the heroes of lands in the sun, we vow to join hands and to focus on building one Caribbean. Raise your voices high, sing of your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, feel our hearts beat as one. Celebrate in song as we rise to heights where we belong. Sound the victory drum for Caracum. The great and diverse be our ethnicities. The bonds that unite us are stronger than these. We dine, we pray, we love. We dance and we play. We relate to each other. Rest in your way. Today, as a people united as one, determined and steadfast we stand. We look to a brand new horizon. The future now firmly in our hands. Raise your voices high and sing of your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong.
Welcome, welcome, brothers. Welcome, sisters. Welcome to our program On Target. And as usual, as soon as we start this program, immediately you can pick up a telephone and give us a call. We never have a subject matter. We speak about anything: politics, religion, socio-economic issues, or any topical issue of the day. And we encourage you to share our program and, like it and share it. This period in Grenada, you have a new government in Grenada. It's a very interesting period. For me, it is also an interesting period because I express my opinion on any subject matter, particularly politics. Opinions are not facts, they are opinions. If I have new information, I change in my opinion. But because the present Prime Minister and all the members of his entourage, all the members of Parliament on the NDC side is relatively brand new to politics. So from my perspective, I don't know what is the ideology. I don't know what is the economic policies. I know very little about them. But there are a serious group that people have given their mandate to lead this country. So this is why I very early, I will point out certain issues I see about them. Now, in the political campaign, the National Democratic Congress, led by the present Prime Minister, Dick Mitchell, evoked the spirit of Maurice Bishop. It caused me to raise my eyebrow and ask myself why. You see, he is a brand new entity to politics. Yes, caller, welcome.
Mr. Pierre, afternoon. Yeah, Mr. Pierre, today mark 80 years of anniversary of Ivan, which Ivan passed in 2004. And in 2004, he have 80 or 85% of the economy was destroyed. Tourism, agriculture, and infrastructure were destroyed. And I remember the economist when I was saying it took about 20 years for Grenada to come back on foot. But at that time, we have a government that was competent and experienced, and within 3 years, Grenada was back on foot. Right, and I would say kudos to the government that at the time who bring back Grenada back on foot. Where some the economists was saying 20 years when they look at the damage that was Ivan did to Grenada, Caricom Peter Martin. So I will say that the government did a lot. And some people say the government did nothing, but I feel I always have to look back and look at what Ivan did to our country, and which was, and look back now of the progress and development of our country. So I want to say something concerned. I listened to the post cabinet briefing yesterday. I heard the Prime Minister was saying about it took 45% non-fuel charge that the government put to keep the gas price at that, to keep electricity rate away so it will skyrocket. And he said they were looking into that gas price again, where with the percentage with the cap on the gas price. They look into that. And when you look at what happens if gas price, if they remove that and gas prices go up again, which will affect the poor class of people. Because the poor class of people are the majority of any country, in any country. And you find what we have when people paying, yeah, say the 20% level remain the same. But when gas prices go up, what happens? People may have to buy gas to do other things. The boss may have to buy gas, put more gas, had to buy gas. They got to put the boss, the guy put water in the vehicle to run. It must be have gas. And what do we have? The boss man, we have to put up the price. We can't tell the boss man pay more for gas and still keep the price at the boss price at 250. And he also said again about the free trade, where okay, the goods are coming in, they will keep it there. So the benefit the business and the consumer. But you see, what I'm saying, when consumer buy some goods, my goods might be about $70 $80. How would we know when the goods that they might be full or 80, and when they buy a new good it's 60? How we know that the old price that they have finished, and the new price, which because you pay less price, it should be price should be dropped to consumers. How will we know that? So that's my thing for the day.
Yes, scholar, good comments, interesting comments. When these things take place, I like to hear economists and our students in school. Some students studying economics in school and business management, and you would have liked to provoke them in discussion. You'd like to hear their views on it, because the businessman will. That is the purpose of a businessman, to make money. And anytime you have a disaster, a calamity, irrespective whether it's natural or man-made, there are opportunities. And you will find people getting rich and wealthy when there are opportunities provided. That's why people invest money. They invest to take advantage of the opportunities provided. And it's all these things we're not certain about the government. The government policy, we cannot be very predictive about the government policy. You see? Because it's a group of individuals that we know not. With time, we will able to read them clearer. Even the business sector, they could be apprehensive and they don't respond to some of the inertia, some of the incentives you might be provided, because they don't know you. And this is why I said, after the government, when the National Democratic Congress was campaigning and they evoked Maurice Bishop's spirit, I wanted to know why. And then immediately after the win election, you was hearing talk about selling marketing board. And I was saying, well, how you could evoke Maurice Bishop's spirit and want to sell marketing board? When marketing board and the international airport is perhaps the two last remaining tangibles of significance that is associated to Maurice Bishop. But you see, I constantly continue to study the utterances and the saying of the government. I was a little taken aback when the Attorney General believed that it was necessary for the political victimization because these individuals was against the transformative agenda of the National Democratic Congress. These people was ostracized. They was punished because of their actions during a political campaign. They didn't even give them a chance. They did not even approach it with an open mind. They decided to fire or get rid of individuals for political reasons. So I went back to evoking Maurice Bishop's spirit. And then I heard another announcement that principals of schools or teachers would be responsible for selecting the auxiliary staff, the supplementary staff in the school. And I went straight back to the revolution. And I asked the questions. If the government of the day believed that the principals of schools are the teachers, and you hear me say the teachers, principal and teachers, and I'll tell you why, is responsible for the auxiliary staff, and at the same time the government feel they are justified to politically victimize individuals because they may be against the transformative agenda, it looks like the revolution. It smells like the revolution. You see, during the revolution, principals was sent to school. Any school that needed a change of principal in this period, they send principals to school that the revolution was comfortable with. And people accepted fait accompli. The schools that they didn't agree with the principal, they sent a teacher to undermine the principal. Everybody knew this teacher was a revolutionary. She was in mass group, a mass organization, he or she. They was very quick to call the teacher a counter-revolutionary. And during that time, Maurice Bishop locked up counter-revolutionary. Bishop said, if you say they, he locking up they. So we had a number of people decide to take the plane and go. Leave the school before they get locked up. Now I ask the question, would children of loudmouth or strong NNP be given scholarship? Would the government continue with the same principle when they have to employ teachers in the teachers' service? Would children or close relative of ministers and NNP political activists have an equal opportunity for employment within the government service? Would they get scholarship? Or would we have to follow the message of the Attorney General and say these people are likely to be against the transformative agenda of the government? You see, that was the case in the revolution. Individuals praised the revolution for solving the unemployment problem. They jailed 3,000 people and about 4,000 had to run for their life. And unemployment dropped by about 7,000 people in a short space of time. And they say they solved the unemployment problem. And within the education system, the unions, the teachers' union, was more pro the revolution. In fact, the only union that continued to fight for the independence was the Public Workers Union. Many attempts was made to overrun the Public Workers Union. And it wasn't the younger people that stood up, The older public officers, particularly the women, that stood up in defiance and felt that the revolutionary government should not overtake the Public Workers Union. All the other unions complied and was very supportive of the revolution. The revolution then was ensuring that if they employed teachers, the teachers was revolutionaries. They involved in mass organization and mass groups. And teachers, they felt that was not very supportive. They could not have been principal in the school. In fact, most of them was trying to head out. The revolution did more. And it is significant based upon what is going on now. When individuals went for scholarships, the revolution sent children of the proletariats to study subject matter that was generally geared to governance. And children of the petty bourgeoisie, they were sent to be professionals. The revolution didn't send you based upon your qualification, They send you to study based upon whether you were a child of the proletariat. You would have gone and studied in areas that they thought geared towards governance and managing the country. And if you were a child of the petty bourgeoisie, they would send you to be a doctor, to be an engineer, to be an agriculture expert, a lab technician, some areas like that. But the children of the proletariats, they study economics, mass communication, political destabilization, politics, etc., etc. And I know my friends who like to glorify the revolution. You should defend that. You should take issue with me on that. But do a little research for yourself. So when the government when the political party evoked Maurice Bishop's spirit, I ask why. Maurice Bishop did not openly believe in God. Because Karl Marx believed that religion is the opium of the people. And already there was people within the revolution that was trying to indoctrinate people not to believe in religion. So why did the present Prime Minister evoke Maurice Bishop's spirit? Now, if you put the responsibility of the supplementary staff or the auxiliary staff in the hand of the principal, and they could well safely say that the majority of principals perhaps are more inclined to the National Democratic Congress. And all they had need to get is one teacher in that school to undermine the principal. The very same way the revolution did. So the question must be asked, if that is the pattern, would children of the NNP get a fair chance in terms of employment? Particularly if they are political activists or politico, or they're louder in their pronouncements. Would they get a fair chance to go and study? Because the revolution did not give a fair chance. If you was a revolutionary, remember I said, if you was a child of a proletariat, the revolution would send you to go and study subjects that was geared to governance. And if you was a child of the petty bourgeoisie, they would send you to study certain subjects. It was no accident, you know. It was clearly planned. There was a clear line of demarcation in terms of the people who go and study. What are the areas they study? It so happened that the revolution failed, and some of the children in the petty bourgeoisie got the better end of the stick. They come out better. But the revolution is planning to fail. And now you see the same thing goes on in education, where the government seems as a plan to go after individuals because of the political perspective. And at the same time, give the mandate to principals of school to choose supplementary staff or auxiliary staff. And they feel confident that perhaps the teachers favors the government more. But it's easy to undermine the principals that decide to walk a next track. You see, the actions of the government had me looking back into my archives. We were in a period of time when over 3,000 Grenadians went to prison. And where some of the actions in education was extremely clear. And where principals were sent in school not based upon application, it was sent based upon how revolutionary you were, whether you were involved in mass organization and mass groups. This should not take place in Grenada anymore. This should not be the pattern in Grenada anymore. During the revolution, people accepted fait accompli. And the justification, well, is a revolution. What you expect? But today is a question of the democratic process. And we have respect for people's religious and political belief. And that is why I believe it is extremely necessary for us to determine or define who have political jobs and who do not have political jobs. And that is why I call on the workers' representative in the Senate. I think he's the best person to champion that cause, because he is the last of the old remnant post 84. And some of the young trade union leaders may not understand what is going on. They seem to be taken aback. Perhaps they never thought the government was moving that quick and so thorough in the political victimization program. So this is why I asked the question. What would be the situation of people whose relatives, family, or parents are strong political activists? Would they get an equal chance for scholarships and for employment in government service? If you are getting rid of people because of the politics, one would have to ask the question, would you employ people because of the politics? Particularly in light of the fact that the Attorney General has clearly stated the justification is because the individuals are against or seem to be against the transformative agenda. This is not to say that You was working with these individuals and they uncooperative. You know. That decision was made based upon the political activity in the election. That decision was made based upon the political activity in an election. So there are some people in the public service maybe walking on eggs. Because I understand when the list was produced, even some ministers got worried. And the word was they should go slow. Because they targeted the people from the lower echelons first. But because they evoked Maurice Bishop's spirit, I wanted to know why. It could not have been socialism or Marxist-Leninism. It could not have been that. The group of people around us see there, them are nothing about socialism or Marxist-Leninism. There is some capitalist people. So I was wondering why. Why is it you had to evoke Maurice Bishop's spirit? And the mere fact that he used evoke and spirit was counterproductive where socialism and Marxist-Leninism is concerned. So I thought the reason for evoking Maurice Bishop's spirit was a disguise and was not genuine. A number of people from the petty bourgeoisie fell for Maurice Bishop's struggle during 74, 75, 76. In fact, they fund the struggle that caused them to go to jail. They fund the struggle of Maurice Bishop that caused them to go to jail immediately after the revolution. Yes, caller, welcome. Caller, welcome.
How you doing, man?
Yes, my brother, welcome.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Great, man. I hear you loud and clear.
Well, let me just add my 2 cents.
Go right
I
ahead.
think that new NDC party is a marriage of GNP and the revolutionaries. That's my opinion. There's nothing. There's capitalism for the rich.
You look as you'll have to call back and finish, but we get the point. You got cut off either from your end or ours. So just give us a call back. Yes, I don't know. It's difficult to cipher out what this young group have in mind in terms of the direction. I don't think the world is too preoccupied with ideology. You know, it's a known fact. China say it's not a black cat or a white cat. It's a cat that holding rat. Chester Humphrey have always, in recent time, has become very dismissive of ideology and he talk about the economic realities of our country. The trade unionists with the red cap, the last remnant of Marxism, Leninism in the country, get quiet. So I never really believe it's a question of ideology. Maybe they want to mark out their own issues, but want to use the spirit of Maurice Bishop. But I'm cautious. I'm careful because I saw what happened when you mix these remnants of ideology with hate and bitterness. Grenadians pay a serious price for it. And we already start to pay a price because it's the first time post-84 that people are losing their jobs because of politics. We must not mistake it with senior public officers being transferred because the Constitution provide, the public service rules provide for officers to be transferred in a place of equal status. Some officers are uncomfortable when they are transferred, but they don't lose pocket as a result of being transformed. And officers who always grow where they are planted, eventually they was in a better position, because officers grow where they are planted. Any good worker, doesn't matter where you put them, they will grow. And the public service, government is the best employer in the country, always, from time immemorial. And there's a lot of opportunities you can have for working with government. But when a government decides, as a matter of course, as a policy decision, to incorporate political victimization, one have to be concerned. And I am extremely concerned that the government is using political victimization as part of its transformative agenda. So I ask the question, what is going to happen to people when they apply for scholarship? Would one have to take into consideration whether the parents is a NNP or not? Because this is the groundwork you lay. If you are firing people because of the politics, and you give the mandate to the principals, the same group who could claim they are overworked, the same group who already is not very productive, you are giving them more responsibility to select your supplementary staff. I find these actions too similar to the actions of the revolution. It is too similar to that of the revolution, and it need to be concerned. While that is going on, the union's representative in the Senate, who is the most senior union representative, is too quiet. It makes me feel uncomfortable because it's too quiet. The other trade union leaders that made a little noise, perhaps they're in a new reality, in a maze, trying to come out of a mirage. In 2022, that's not supposed to be taking place in Grenada. It is not justified. There is no reason for it. The area that will be affected most is education. Education will be the one affected most for that. We already have schools in Grenada over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years or more. You have not had a concert in one of these schools. There are no groups in the schools, neither scout nor guides. The forage group is seriously diluted because there are a whole department for forage and government have a staff, but the support system for forage is not well supported. So I believe those are worrying points in the country that we should give consideration. You see, when I speak, I always give my opinion. And where politics is concerned, we reference Eric Gary, Maurice Bishop, and Kit Mitchell. Because these are the three most impactful people in Grenada politics. Three are the most impactful people in Grenada politics. So you must reference them when you speak. But in terms of Grenada, Maurice Bishop period was when over 3,000 people went to prison. And there are a number of issues in it that I think is worthy of discussion, particularly in light of the fact that his spirit was evoked for a new political entity. And I see some of the signs now, it is worrying. We never had before, post 74, that individuals are gotten rid of, and the justification that was given is because of politics, based upon the SRO that was used. It might have been that individual was slighted, disadvantaged, and moved because of politics. But that aspect of the public service that is used, that you could trace to, I think is a worrying point. Richard Duncan, a man I well respect, greatly respect, is part of the service today as part of the transition team, and he should be aware of that. And yes, caller, welcome.
Yes, Mr. Pierre, good afternoon.
You have to speak a little louder for us, brother.
Good afternoon.
Yes, my brother. Yeah, go right ahead.
I tend to agree with some of the things you say, some again I don't agree. And I think you make a lot of sense in those I agree with. But those I don't agree with, I won't go into details with it. I believe that every government that rules Grenada, well, let's say the leadership comes in with a different philosophy completely. And we're not seeing the carry on of this philosophy. And that is a little bit worried. After Mitchell Harvey had his style, Mr. Tillman Thomas had his style. We see that NDC again, but this is a new brand NDC coming with a total different styling. Mr. Blaze had a different styling. And therefore, I think that have affected our economic growth to some extent because of the different styling of the leaders and what the party itself purporting. I don't think no party in Grenada would be able to live up to live the standard of the revolution. The revolution team, our leadership, they were bent on certain things, and I thought they were a little too hasty in certain things they do, and they break down themselves. I will believe that the revolution break down themselves. They take things too hasty, they change up too much things, and that caused them in it. And I'm hoping that other political parties don't follow up that kind of way. So while they might take praise for certain things that the revolution do, I haven't seen the political parties following through with what. In the revolution, people were talking about how people are willing to work and whatnot. That is not quite true. People were forced to work. You were told to do something, and if you don't do it, you know what will happen. In the Gary days, as you said, you have been transferred to Carrico. In the revolution days, you know what will happen. The system was different. The system was different. Today, based on what Ms. Claudette said, and I support you there, based on what Ms. Claudette said, that the people seem to were not towing the line of the government, and they said they were sent home, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous again. You can't send home a man if he didn't toe your line. You send him home if he's not following the policy and not working. So I am wondering, where is the future for Grenada if we continue that way? But to me, every political party comes with a different ideology, and that is somewhat concerning.
Yes, scholar, thank you.
Good.
Let me read this, brother Onisto, man. Onisto want to know if you can tell how many people that was fired and why, and who was on contract. And he wondered why I cannot bring them on my program. Onisto, some of the people that were fired, it's very easy for you to get the letter of dismissal, because I read out some of them on my program, and I even tell you who was the permanent secretary in Carrico, and it's easy to get the names. And I understand you were one of the individuals that were making the names. you were one of the individuals that prepared the list. The list you prepared, I understand it shocked some even ministers because it was so thorough. There are a number of people in the public service, name was on that list. Some of the people is from the lower echelons of the society, and one person was so afraid they didn't even want me call the workplace where they're working now. Because they said to me, it seems that they only NNP day. So they don't even want to call the workplace because the woman was concerned about her child going to school. She was concerned what's going to happen to her child in school, to the extent that one person close to a minister, he tell his mother, you don't know what's going on in this school. He said, glad he leave this school, you know. You don't know. So, Onisto, you have been part of a group that prepare a victimization list that is even shock some of the ministers when they see the list. Some of them say, go slow with it. So you know the impact. I think you want somebody to come on the program so that you all could go after the children and etc. And I'm asking the question, if you have this victimization list, would children of the NNP be given a fair chance to have scholarships? Would they be employed in the teaching service? You see, a lot of people, it is in a lot of people's interest now, perhaps to change to yellow to get a job. Otherwise, you're not even prepared to employ some of them on the road. I think this is the saddest period in the NDC history. I really thought they would have given up this habit of going after the marginalized every time they're in power. During the period of the homegrown structural adjustment program, the National Democratic Congress went after the people on the estates. At that time, the GMMIWU was very weak. They were struggling even to pay the TUC fee to end up in TUC. And when they paid late. So they couldn't vote in a TUC. They just had observer status. So these people were fired. You even fired Shorty in that group. And in 2008, when the National Democratic Congress won election, although they promised they would not end the Imani program, they fired more than half of the people. And they went in the SEED program. And from the village of Paraclete alone, 5 women were fired on his toe. One of them is still alive. She is 99. She then was perhaps the youngest of the group. And one of the women that they fired, she was blind. And she had 14 children. So this time you presented newness. And you promised to make the workers on contract permanent. Because you claim when you're on contract, you cannot get a loan in the bank. So it comes as a shock to workers on contract that now you're asking about the terms of the contract. This is deceitfulness of the worst kind. You're asking about the terms of the contract, but during the political campaign, Onisto, one of the main set of issues that was propagated was to make contract workers permanent. So I think it's a little bit unfair to be asking on that post in yours when you were part and parcel of those who prepared the list. You know whose name you helped write down. You know who on the committee that was responsible for putting in it. Because most of the ministers was young. They were not involved. So you help them prepare the hit list. And you're on program now asking about the terms of contract. Yeah? I think it's important that people discuss this issue. Maybe we don't have answers, but is it fair? You know? And I constantly appeal to the union representative in the Senate. I think you have enough clout to address this issue. As I said before, if you support the Attorney General, play your hand. Don't play hide and seek, my brother. Come out loud and clear and tell us to what extent that you support the Attorney General who claimed that the individuals that were sent home did not support the transformative agenda. And I guess based upon to what extent they was involved in the political campaign. Tell us the union representative in the Senate, Comrade President General Andre Lewis. We're going to continue. I'm going to continue calling on you because I think you have not given perhaps is Daisy Hazard and Brian Grimes. These two individuals must be shocked. Yes, caller, welcome.
Punch, how you doing?
Yes, my brother, great.
Everything okay?
Great, man.
Mr. Pierre, Mr. Brizan, the late George Brizan, Ignatius Brizan, has wrote a book, Island of Comfort. Remember that book?
Yeah.
And you understand what it entails?
Yes, generally.
Yeah, because when you look at Grenada and the history of the politics, Brizan is, I think he hit the nail on the head, you know? But I don't want to stress on that. What I want to also say, there's a saying that what goes wrong in life comes wrong. And anything people do, they have to pay. It may take 27 years, 5 years, 10 years, or maybe generation to come will have to pay. You know that? So nothing you do, go unpaid. And last thing, Mr. Pierre, I wanted to address something there. But I lose my thought. I will call back.
You could call back. You could always call back. These things happen.
Okay.
You see, I don't really agree with what goes around comes around. People say that very loosely. But good is good to do, so do good. Good is good to do, so do good. And where politics is concerned, sometimes we have to look at the mistakes that politicians make in the past to avoid making them now. When Eric Matthew Gary come on the scene, Gary set a new template. So some of the criticism that went towards him, we thought it was justified. But after you see Maurice Bishop, he made Gary a saint. And then we had other political leaders. Then we had Kit Mitchell in 2 significant terms. And the last 2 terms of Kit Mitchell, I thought was 2 of the best political terms in the country in total. Even the ministers that functioned in the last 2 terms, there was no significant issue that you could have pointed your finger at any of the ministers during the period that you could have seen. I thought the interaction between the government and the media was exemplary. You had press conferences after every cabinet meeting. You had, I think, the Prime Minister had a quarterly engagement with journalists. In addition to that, all the ministers was prepared to expose themselves to the public to ask questions. So I thought this was a level we reached that was the admiration of the rest of the Caribbean. And the Prime Minister of Grenada then, Kit Mitchell, subjected himself to perhaps the greatest criticism any politician ever received in the whole Caribbean. The only man perhaps that come a fast second is Ralph Gonzalez. And I like his spirit, the old war horse, Ralph Gonzalez. There are one politician in the Caribbean, when they criticize him and call him Brian Nancy, he sent and mashed down the wall. And the wall was 100 years old. Fellas used to sit on the wall, he mashed it down. He couldn't take the criticism. So Dr. Mitchell set an example, a template that Grenadian leaders have to follow. So we are not really criticizing Dick Mitchell yet, because he ain't do nothing yet for criticism. But there are some steps that he's taking that is of concern. And because of the fact that he's stating information would be on a need-to-know basis is a worrying sign. Very worrying. And the fact that he decided to implement political victimization is an extremely worrying sign. And I think this is worthy of discussion. You know, this is worthy of discussion. And I hear somebody saying, you're running your mouth on everybody, you got to run it. Well, I don't know if you're speaking to me, but I have established already that I express my opinion on political issues. Any issue I'm comfortable with, particularly politics. Opinions are not facts. They are people's opinion. Opinions are not facts. So if you advance new information, I could change my opinion. But I'm so happy that the telecommunication network is liberalized in Grenada. And all and sundry could express themselves. And that's why I open up my program for you to call. And that's why I read some of your comments. And even if you post a comment that is against me, I'm likely to read it even quicker than one that supports me. You know? Yeah. So my concern is the trend, the direction. And I believe it is all the time still. Government can always, or some of the political activists can also examine and see if it is worth changing. Because when you go on social media, we have some social media warriors there. And sometimes I am worried about the bitterness and the anger that they're pushing. I'm worried. And an individual, one of the individuals who have been fired, she tell me she worried about her children in school. So she cares not to say anything. She did not even want me to make mention of the village in which she lived. I said, no, I go say Ticola. Don't worry. You're safe with me. I go always say Ticola. So I would not say the village you live in, you know? And this is the challenge we have in a small country. We live in a small country in Grenada where we're very political, but there are situations where two spouses in a home support different political parties. Families are divided where politics is concerned. So when election finish, you want the government of the day in particular to send out the olive branch. The night after election or the night immediately election, the then Prime Minister Kit Mitchell sent out the olive branch, willing to work with you. I said the statement the then Dick Mitchell made was insignificant, but it was worthy of note because he said, I did not initiate the contact. It was unnecessary. It was unnecessary but significant. Why was it necessary for him to say he did not initiate the conversation? And I noticed in Parliament, the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister Kit Mitchell, past ex-Prime Minister Kit Mitchell, went to him again with his hand on his shoulder, smiling. It was a means to say, this is not a war, my brother. This is politics. And it was another good initiative, a good attempt to say, let us tone down the bitterness among our people. Let us tone it down. So the Prime Minister want to show, the ex-Prime Minister Kit Mitchell want to show Dick Mitchell. Let us tone down the bitterness. You know, let us, politics is not war. We have to work together. And on both occasions, the ex-Prime Minister Kit Mitchell publicly go to him to show him, let us tone it down. Otherwise, we're going to cause problems in a society. Our people cannot be bitter. Now it's time for us to work together. There's always time for politics. And I guess that comes from a wise head. And it's very important for the individuals in politics that readily evoke Maurice Bishop's spirit to understand some of the negatives of Maurice Bishop. Some of the revolutionaries who were more idealistic than Maurice Bishop accuse him of being a petty bourgeois, a womanizer, and not implementing the principles of Marxist-Leninism. Maurice Bishop agreed for joint leadership, but he said he didn't understand the workability. They say Castro tell him not to accept it because Castro have cultism, one-manism. That is the reason Maurice Bishop, they claim Maurice Bishop backed down from joint leadership. But also in the village of Paraclete, after all the death from the revolution, Maurice Bishop made it his duty to visit that community. He was never a regular in the community in the struggles. But after the death, he made it his duty to come to that community. And I guess he was trying to reach out people, trying to give the revolution sometime a human face. Although the day they lock up Dr. Japal, people believe the conscience of the revolution died. It is only time still to guide the new National Democratic Congress, newness, because they claimed there was new NDC, to guide them and to tell them to avoid the trajectory that they're going on. And this is why I feel my brother in the Senate, Andre Luis, President General of the Technical and Allied Workers Union and President of the TUC, maybe you should counsel the ministers and tell them they're going on the wrong direction. You're going to evoke political bitterness on the ground and spite and hate. We are a small community, a small country, and we could do well to avoid that. And we're back with you again tomorrow between 12 and 1 when we come for another program, and you too could always bring up what you want to discuss. Thank you very much.
The heroes of lands in the sun, we vow to join hands and to focus on building one Caribbean. Raise your voices high, sing up your Caribbean pride, sing it loud and strong, feel our hearts beat as one. Celebrating song as we rise to heights where we belong. Sound the victory drum for Caracom. The great and diverse be our ethnicities. The bonds that unite us are stronger than these. horizon. The future now firmly in our hands. Raise your voices high and sing of your courage.